Ireland, Ireland, together, standing tall, shoulder to shoulder, what's our Ireland's call?
Thank goodness we're not rugby, mate, because we can't sing.
Mate, absolute respect. It needed a big play, a big player, and a big moment, and Ireland, they did it.
Maybe I've just got short-term memory, but this is the first time I actually watched Ireland play, and I genuinely respected what they did out there. Like, it wasn't just technically good. They physically came out and beat up the Springboks. It was amazing.
It was, for me, probably the best I've seen an Irish team play.
So, that was my sentiment too. I thought maybe I've just forgotten some of their games, but that was outstanding.
To go to Durban, the back of their season, and to physically, not take a step back, take 10 forward, and put in that kind of performance. And then at 24-19, you thought they've got to go away now, and they didn't. They just got stronger. They had a drop goal. We kicked it back at them and said, well, I think that was a bit of a fluke. You want to have another one? and over it went. To me, it would have been a travesty had they lost that test match, given the way they played. A heroic 24-22. That's more England style. England would have left very happy with a 24-22. Andy Farrell, if you follow his career at Wigan, his rugby league career, we only saw the tail end of him when he came over to Union right at the end. That guy's got a set of balls.
Second only to his son.
Exactly, and a ticker. And that Irish team played with ticker.
Yeah.
We saw our two locks bloodied on 15 minutes.
Ooh.
We saw our fullback knocked out within 20 minutes. And somehow we hung in there, kicked 8 penalties, Andre Pollard. But I just think absolute respect to Ireland. A fantastic win, 1-1, thoroughly deserving of a series that tied the series.
Yep.
I would love to have seen a third test, and I tell you now, I wouldn't have backed us to win that third test either, the way the momentum had gone towards Ireland. And say what you want now, I believe the Springboks are the best team in the world. They're the World Cup holders and they're the world champions, but they're not a better team than Ireland if you match the two up against each other. Statistically, we've won 1 out of 4. They've done us in Dublin, they've done us in Paris, and they did us in Durban.
We out-islanded Ireland in that first test, and they Springboked us in the second one. They came out, they manhandled us, they punched us in the nose, they cooked with our pots and pans in our kitchen. You saw the look on the guys' faces. They were shocked. All that time spent practicing offloads, and here these guys came and turned it into a wrestle fest. And I don't think we were 100% mentally ready for it.
Well, as you said to me in our wonderful WhatsApp exchanges during the game, that was so beautifully articulated in the Sunday Times, when I was screaming, kick to the corner, take the try, and you were like, if they're concerned about an exit, they shouldn't be in this game.
Correct.
Because we were struggling to get out. Every time we kicked a penalty, they kicked off, we really struggled to kind of make our way back up the field. But I loved your one line to me was, while we were out passing, they were hitting the heavy bag all week.
Big time.
They weren't talking in the week. They really showed that mongrel and that intensity. And what's disappointing for me in terms of the Boks, and it was a disappointing Springbok performance,
Yes.
is we saw this a year ago at Ellis Park, or 2 years ago at Ellis Park, where we hammered the All Blacks in Nelspruit, felt sorry for them in the week. We were such big favourites to take them out. Similar type of game. We went down early, fought back well, and then lost it in the last 10 minutes. And they had a famous win, 35-23, 4 tries to 2. Here we had an opportunity to put Ireland away, win the series, and make a big statement, and we didn't again. And there's one thing about the Springbok team, and any Springbok team, when you write them off, they'll go out and they'll beat whoever in the world. The moment they're the favourites, you just don't see that. You just don't see that mongrel. You just don't see that fight in them.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
I think your point there is 100% fair. The backs to the wall thing, the Boks have nailed it. That is a song they can sing and hit every key. But as soon as they are favourites, they get a bit wobbly. They don't like it. They're not comfortable with it. And I think that was on display again this weekend.
Now, we saw them come out in Pretoria, completely stun Ireland with a ball-in-hand approach. Where all
Beautiful.
they sought was was width and depth, and scored a fantastic try within the first 3 minutes, unlocked that Irish defence, and then struggled a bit after that. A lot of people saying to me, oh, we reverted to another style of play and we were kicking everything away. I don't think that was the case at all.
No.
I think we just got beaten up.
We just got beaten up. We absolutely just got beaten up. And a case in point is at the end of the game, we're up by 2 points. There's 5 minutes left to go in the game, slightly less than 5 minutes to go. We're left-hand scrum, 30 metres out. Classic Boks rugby is the 10 doesn't even touch the ball. 9 takes it off the base, hits 12 on the short line. He goes over the gain line. We clean out. The forwards come around the corner. We bash it again. We go upfield, direct, looking for a penalty to make it 27-22 with 2 minutes to go. What do the Boks do? Grant plays the fly half. Fly half hits the 12 in a nice little sexy drift. He skips the outside centre to the fullback who plays the little wing on the edge, and Chesn gets tackled into touch. Turnover.
10 metres behind where it's all started.
There you go. So people think when I criticize what the Boks are doing now that I'm criticizing Tony Brown. I'm not criticizing Tony Brown. Tony Brown is an attack coach. He was hired to install the attack, and that's what he's doing. What I'm criticizing is Rassie's decision to go this way. And I'm saying that in the full knowledge that this guy won back-to-back World Cups and has won wherever he's gone, so he must have a clear plan. But I cannot put forward an argument to defend the Springboks based purely on being a Rassie fan, as many people are doing. If you cannot logically explain what they're doing, how do you defend it? And so it's very easy to go with the populist opinion, oh no, Rassie's got it all under control, without having to answer any questions. This attack direction has the potential to be a minefield for us. And I think it's something, I've said it before, that Rassie knows very, very well. Anytime you have a team, you're either going to have a situation where you're an attack-minded team and the defense knows their job is to clean up. I think the Stormers are a lot like that. Like, they've got a very good defense, but they are attack-minded. And the defense is there to mop up. The scramble defense with the Stormers is amazing. And I'm not saying their first phase defense isn't good. I'm just saying they're not a defensive-minded team first. They're a team that likes to express themselves, have a go. And so the Springboks are leaning in that direction, whereas before it was a Jacques Nienaber team. Their mentality was defensive, and the attack waited for their turn based on the pressure that the defense created. And so there has definitely been a shift there in the way that they're playing.
So this is a team in transition.
Yes.
It's a team that will get more familiar, get better as the season progresses. Will we look back on this result and be thankful for it and say, Rassie beats Ireland in Durban? It's like you can't question anything I do. I win everything. I've won the Lions series. I've won back-to-back World Cups. I've won the Rugby Championship. We went to New Zealand where they wanted the big win. They had lost in Mendoza a couple of seasons back, and Rassie said it was part of the master plan. But Beauden Barrett hit the post. He doesn't hit the post, we don't win. Richie Mahanga misses a conversion, and Geordie Barrett misses a penalty. There's no chasing the sun too. Andre Pollard gets it over. France are out. He doesn't. We're out. So the margins are so fine. I was a bit disappointed when I heard him talk about it would have been a great comeback at 24-22 had it not been for that last drop goal. Ifs. We're not an ifs team. We've got there with so many ifs.
That's exactly right. For guys who won 3 playoff matches by 1 point, you can't really be talking about ifs and buts, number one. Number two, that's classic expansive coach-minded talk. Talking about, the pass that didn't go to hand, we were almost there.
One pass away from unlocking them.
That is nowhere near Rassie's wheelhouse. So I've got no doubt that Rassie has a plan for this. I'm just saying I'm not sure whether the objective in the short term is to win, because we're going in a direction that it doesn't necessarily back that up.
But now Rassie keeps on speaking. He spoke post-2019, post-2023. What defines the greatest teams is a consistency to win,
yes,
to have a winning habit,
yes,
in between World Cups. We don't do that. We average 65% between World Cups, yes, 64%. That great New Zealand side of Richie McCaw, Dan Carter, 2011 to 2015, they won 90% of their games, and they played more games away from New Zealand than they did in New Zealand. And for me, they set the standard of in the professional age, the greatest team, because not only did they win those 2 World Cups, they managed to sustain that, and every week they went out and they did it and they won.
Yeah.
We've now played 3. We already dropped 1. We're going to play Portugal. That will make it look good, take us up to 3 from 4, 75%, and then we're into the Rugby Championship. And it's going to be a difficult battle going to Australia for those 2 tests. And then we host the All Blacks, who will also have improved in South Africa, and then obviously the end of year tour. Do we also have to accept that maybe we are just, because historically we're 63% winners, that the Springbok team loses for 37% of the time, but they know how to win World Cups? That we're a World Cup team, we're a knockout team. We can go to a tournament, even when we're struggling, and we can somehow find something in that tournament. The players galvanize, and they get the results. And some teams like Ireland can be so consistent, but they're not a knockout team. Is there...
I don't know how you would argue against that. Based on what? I mean, aside from Nick's great run, how would you argue against that mentality, what you just said there? That is a point that is close to indisputable because it's a reality. So maybe it's the backs to the wall nature of a tournament where it's, listen, if you don't do this, we're going home, you know?
And we need that kind of pressure on us all the time.
There's no jeopardy in a match against Ireland when you've basically already secured a draw in the series at worst.
And that was the same we saw with New Zealand at Ellis Park. It was like disappointing to lose, but they weren't crushed. And when you heard Rassie speaking, Chasing the Sun, the loss against Ireland in Paris it wasn't a clutch game.
Yeah.
They were still through.
Yeah.
They had to beat Scotland. And they were very good in beating Scotland. And is that something we've just got to accept and say, when it comes to those big crunch games where there is no tomorrow, go and back the Boks because they'll probably do it.
Yeah.
But when you have an expectation of them to stick someone away, they're not necessarily going to do it.
No, I think that is a reality that you have to accept until somebody changes the status quo on that. I think that is how it is.
And I think that's what was disappointing for me on Saturday. 990 test caps, the most experienced in the history of the game. But it was all this rah-rah during the week. Great vibes, great feelings, packing their chairs up, putting them away. It was just reminding me a bit of England before they played us in the 2019 World Cup final, you know. And obviously we don't go out there to lose, but they were just 5% off mentally where they should have been. And Ireland finished stronger. And Ireland finished stronger in Pretoria.
Yeah, I thought the way the Boks managed that game in the second half was outstanding, and they came back. I loved the fact that they took their points when they were on offer. Andre was dead-eye kicker. There was a lot of good that came out of that second half, but you measured on the scoreboard, and on the scoreboard you came up short. And Andre's goal line clearances, his dropouts, also came up short that basically gifted some opportunities to Frawley, one of which he put over. So you already mentioned earlier on about the margins being so fine, and that's been my point from the beginning. I don't think the Boks have suddenly become the worst team in rugby. I just keep reiterating this move towards tactics that are a longer route to victory makes the margins even smaller. And so I'm just trying to understand what the thinking is behind it. But yeah, I mean, the Boks have now got some questions to answer in the Rugby Championship. We've got some serious injuries that we're going to have to absorb. We haven't replaced Dwayne Vermeulen because Jasper's been out. We've been playing Kwagga at 8. Now we're without Franco Mostert, who's broken his leg. Peter Steffel missed the opener against the Wallabies. So some big questions that need to be answered.
But if you look at the series, and they will say they didn't lose the series, so and Rassie has said this often, I'll give up a few defeats if you give me back-to-back World Cups.
Spot on.
But just from a South African point of view, as a big Boks supporter, watching them, you just want them to nail those kind of games. And again, admittedly, and totally agree with you, they really did fight back well. And Pollard was 8 from 8. He was just outstanding off the tee. The debate we had is I had said at times I would have backed the forwards to go to the line and actually go for the 5 or 7 points because I thought they were struggling with their exits. And you said, if you're struggling with your exits, you're not winning a game. And it was working. Those points took them to a 24-19 lead. But just looking at a lot of the social media reaction, there's so little emphasis that was put on how we felt to close out those last 5 minutes. As opposed, everything was how we came back from 16-6 to 24-19. But at the end of the game, it was 25-24.
Yeah.
So the All Blacks were incredible in the World Cup final to play for an hour without their captain and to be 2 missed kicks away from winning it. But no one cares. They lost 12-11.
Correct.
So what would we learn from this 1-point defeat?
I saw, you mentioned earlier about this being the most experienced Bok team ever. Obviously, we lost Willie Leroux early on, and Sasha went on at fullback. And as you know, I'm a huge fan of Radio. I think he's the future. And to many extents, I think the future is now. Like, this kid has definitely got something special. I don't think he's a fullback, at least not right now, ready for test action. And he made some great contributions, but he also made some decisions that kind of exposed him for not being a settled test quality fullback yet. And so I think the Boks paid for that. But on the other side of the field, you had Jamie Osborne playing fullback for Ireland. They had some guys that were new to the scene as well. And you kind of have to, your plan has to be able to accommodate that and absorb that loss of experience. And that's where the Boks kind of fell a bit short.
And that's we go back again to Ireland and just absolute applause, respect, credit.
Totally.
There were 6 players who beat us in Paris who weren't there. Bunde Aki wasn't there. Johnny Sexton's retired.
Keenan
wasn't there. Gibson Park wasn't there. Frawley comes in and produces 2 golden moments. Jamie Osborne, a centre, playing at fullback. But we made him look like a god because there was just no contestables. We kicked everything on him, and the kicking was just poor.
We didn't contest anything. I mean, they had free catches. It was insane.
But I felt their forwards like took it to us at the break, and their forwards took it to us in collisions and contact. They just look like that angry South African team that gets written off against the All Blacks and comes out and really just shows some mongrel. And then to see an Eben bleeding early on, Franco bleeding early on, Willie just being knocked unconscious, the intensity of it, that's what we normally do to teams.
Totally. And you can write it off and say, oh, no, it's an overreaction. You know, they just caught them on the day. It's got nothing to do with their move towards more attacking rugby. But it doesn't work like that. The reality is the Boks have invested time since the last World Cup in building whatever they're trying to build on attack. And that comes with a shift in mindset. And it's not a coincidence that our tight 5 was destroyed by this other team in the first half, and that Oaks we never see bleed and seem to be impervious to pain were running off the field or being helped off the field, and other Oaks were bleeding. Oaks that you never see even grimace were bleeding from the head. I mean, that's a lot of coincidences.
Look, to me, this was one also your hats off to Ireland. You know, we've kind of taunted the Irish.
Absolutely.
We've mocked them at times.
Yeah.
We've said, come, let's see how good you are away from the Aviva. And just
brilliant result.
Brilliant result for them. And I just wish we'd play Ireland a lot more home and away.
Yes.
It would be great.
Yes.
Because I just felt that Farrell said beforehand, they were confident they could bounce back with a win. He said, but the main thing he wants to take from South Africa, can they leave with a performance that they would be proud of? And even at 24-22, he would have said it was a performance they can be proud of. We can't be proud of our total performance. We can be proud of our second half comeback, but watching that game, I think the likes of an England and the likes of New Zealand would have just felt a little bit more comfortable that a team can come to South Africa and beat the mighty Springboks.
Totally.
Back-to-back World Cup winners. And I think that's what pissed me off the most is the back-to-back world champions shouldn't lose at home. Not in front of 53,000 absolutely rugby-obsessed fans. And, you know, I think South Africans on the whole have been very immature about this defeat in the sense that outside of guys obviously giving me a lot of abuse on social media, and I kind of just blocked them and went off my phone because I mentioned the fact it's now 1 from 4 against Ireland.
Yep.
And I think it is a result that will haunt Rassie and kind of play in his mind. I think they are in our heads.
Exactly.
And he can't get that result back for a while because we don't play them for a while. So, it's been... Our game is so healthy. Loftus was capacity crowd. Durban capacity crowd. Loftus capacity for the URC final. But what's disappointing is the Bulls lost the URC final to Glasgow. The Boks lost to Ireland in Durban. And these should be bastions, man. Teams shouldn't come here and win finals against us, and they shouldn't come here and win big test matches. I can understand it at the Aviva or neutral ground, but not in South Africa.
So sport's a funny thing, and referees can make influence, and you know, there's things that are out of your control. For me, it's less about the results, and it's more about the performance. So on any day, a team can catch you. Ireland they're not mugs. They can play. And for me, what's disappointing is, and I keep coming back to this thing, they spent the week not training and just getting their minds ready to fight us. And they bloodied us and they beat us. And we have spent the time since the last World Cup doing the complete opposite of that. They came out and played like the Springboks. They came out like they were the Springboks and they lost last week, and now they're out. They've got their backs to the wall, and they're going to show you, hey, you don't out physical us. We'll mess with you physically, you know? They were us. How many? This is Bok rugby that we saw on the weekend. It's just that the other team did it to us.
Did we need this result to bring a bit of perspective, a little bit of humility to our game again, post the World Cup?
I don't know if are you talking about fans or are you talking about the team?
The fans and the
Yeah,
team.
no, sure. I mean, the fans you have to get caught up in a World Cup victory. You have to enjoy it. You have to say that's the cool thing about being a fan is you can be arrogant and enjoy the win and run with it. I mean, that's the whole point. But inside the camp, you think, I don't
this
know.
one will hurt. It has to hurt them.
No, it's
eh?
definitely hurt them.
Again, we go back to chasing the sun. After the Paris defeat, Rassie, I don't see it in your eyes. I don't see the disappointment. I don't see the hurt. But here they had the chance to close a series win.
I think there's more hurt coming. And the reason I say that is I think there's a bit of denial in this Bok camp. So some oaks have come out and go, I don't know why you guys are criticizing Tony Brown. The players are saying they're loving Tony. And they're enjoying this time on him, which is, for guys that have been on the beat for a long time, how that's news, I don't know. Because, at Christmas time, when Uncle Tony, who you haven't seen for 11 months, rocks up with presents for all the kids and lets them eat ice cream before dinner, they love him. The problem is, when you dish up the veggies, none of the kids are eating now because they've had their ice cream. Obviously, the players are going to love this guy because he's playing their jam. He's saying, have a go, express yourself, enjoy it. The Oak had barely touched on in South Africa. We hear the story from Swayze where Faf didn't really enjoy the box kicking game, and it's not really his style, Naturally, rugby players, backs, want to have a go. They don't need an excuse.
Well, he enjoyed the 2 World Cup wins that he got from it,
Yeah.
and the British and Irish Lions series win.
There you go.
So if you look at the Boks 2 tests against Ireland, you take the All Blacks 2 tests against England, where are you positioned?
Yeah. Look, for me, the Boks are the world's number 1 team when they play like South Africa. And for me, the Boks are probably a top 5 team when they go away from that. And they become I think that it's going to be an erratic roller coaster ride. I've said that. As long as they dabble in this non-Jacques Nienaber rugby, they're going to, like I say, they're going to score some beautiful tries. I think against Portugal, Tony Brown's going to have a fantastic day. People are going to say, this is the rugby we need to play. But I think when the margins are tight in the biggest games against the best teams, you play like that at your own peril. And sometimes you get it right and you win, and people say, see, this is the future. And then generally you come off second best and you start veering back to that place where you can't win, and people say, play however you can to win. Just do whatever it takes.
If you take the media reaction, social media reaction in New Zealand, there certainly isn't a universal love affair with Razor over there, especially in the North Island, okay? Post the game, people were saying this it's All Black squad without identity. Gregor Paul, one of the more renowned analysts there, was not impressed at all with the All Blacks. He really gave it to them. He said they're stuttering along. All they've got is ticker. All they've got is grunt, and that's their character, and it's not going to be enough against the best teams.
Oof.
Now, I think it betrays just how good England were in those 2 tests. I thought England were outstanding. Felix Jones has introduced that rush defense, and it troubled the All Blacks. I thought they did particularly well to get out of that series with 2 wins. And also, the way he used his substitutions in the last 30 minutes, and especially Beauden Barrett coming in, and then that dual role between D-Mac and Beauden Barrett in terms of first receiver, and the way they alternate between Flyff and 15. And Mahanga will still come back. I would have been a lot more encouraged had we seen that kind of thing from the Boks over 2 tests and not that inconsistency again.
I mean, how dangerous are the All Blacks now when you've got the media chiding them after victories at home against a way more settled team under an established coach? Razor's come in, first 2 tests in charge. He's missing his starting hooker. He's missing Aaron Smith, who's retired. He's missing the backup scrum half. He's missing Richie Moanga.
He's missing 2 locks who've been around for a decade.
Missing Sammy Whitelock. Missing his fullback. And those 2 wins are not good enough. Those Oaks are dangerous.
And the fact that they could dig deep, as they did in their last 10 minutes, how they were defending their line in the last 2 minutes to get the series win. I thought they were very impressive. You know, the Australian Wales game, I didn't quite know what to make of. It was poor conditions. Joe Smith's got a massive task with Australia at the moment, and that's going to be a slow grind, and just Wales just not there at the moment. They're not at the races, and we saw that when they played us, and we comfortably beat them. But this cycle for me, I'm looking England, New Zealand. I was surprised with France how closely they pushed the Pumas again, given that 30 of their players were at home. They got a whole World Cup squad at home. No Dupont. So, again, I remember Jake White saying after the World Cup, and it came out the wrong way. I don't think he meant it that way. But he said when you win by 20 points in a World Cup final or a playoff game, then you're setting the standard. But when you win 3 games by 1 point, you're not necessarily the blueprint because you could have lost it by 1 point. And we won the World Cup, which was magnificent. You can't take that away from us. 4 times World Cup winners and world champions. But there just has to be that 10% that's there every time we play a big test. And I think that has to be the challenge for this team this season, to show that they can mentally switch it on, even if it's not supposedly clutch.
It's not a knockout game.
That they can switch it on, you know? Like, they need to bury the All Blacks 2-0 at home, not 1-all. Or heaven forbid, lose both at home. They need to go and get at least 1 win in Australia.
They need to get 2 against this Australian team. Come on. We need to go and break this hoodoo. I mean, if the world champions can't go to Australia and beat this Wallaby setup, I mean, I don't know. For me, I know our history in Australia is not great, but we need to win in Brisbane.
And Perth. And get both wins there.
It sounds like we're down on the Boks. I'm not down on the Boks. I think Rassie deserves massive credit for bringing Sasha through in this series. Whether it was by design or not, that kid got on the field. He showed his class. For me, this guy has to be worked into the fabric of this current Boks squad and featured more. How, where, and who, that's up for debate. But this guy's got something special, and we mustn't wait till he's 26 to get him game time. Like what happened in this series, that he actually got on the field, even if he was caught out once or twice at fullback. This is a very special player, and I think we need to feature him.
So would he, for you, be the greatest positive that came out of the series individually?
I would say yes.
And collectively, the positives you would take from the series, the scrum at times.
Oh, look, we've got a great scrum, and Ox is slotted in as the starter fantastically. Jesse Creel owning that 13 on D, and relishing his role in Tony Brown's attacking shapes, you know, as the sort of bludgeon in the back line. So, getting the best out of Jesse Creel.
And now also because of injuries, you said earlier, Franco Mostert, what a warrior, broke his leg. He's going to be out for a while. We got Lurt, who's on the sideline, still injured. And we got Peter Steph du Toit, who's not available to play the first test against Australia, also injured. So from having these incredible lock stocks, it's looking a little bit vulnerable there. Samuel Murat will start against Portugal as the captain with Achia Snyman. The Viking has got to go up a level now and take ownership. He's got to take ownership of that jersey. We've got Ewan that's still there, obviously, for the bigger games in the Rugby Championship. But Portugal will not be a measurement of anything, regardless of what anyone says. Every one of the URC teams would beat them. That's why most of their players don't even play in the top 14. So let's also, the PR talk is nice. They're a quality side. Yeah. It's not their soccer side that's coming. There's no Cristiano there.
Correct.
This is a rugby side that got a famous win against Fiji, but is second tier. And by all accounts, we should pump them regardless of who runs out in Bloemfontein. So that's kind of just one to get players comfortable wearing a green jersey and they're out playing. It's then we go on the road again to Australia. We've got to break that psychological barrier, like you say, and that's going to determine what headspace we're in when we come back to play the All Blacks in Ellis Park and Cape Town. What do you want to see in the Rugby Championship from the Springboks?
Well, I mean, obviously, the Springboks have got to win, and for me, I don't really care how they play. They just got to own the scoreboard and come out with victory. So I would like to see a lot of clarity around how they're going to play, regardless of which way it is. So if they're going to embrace this attacking game, give it horns, pick the guys that can play those positions. I don't really want to see Peter Steph du Toit in the wide channel. So if you're going to play that way, then look at a Ben Jason Dixon. You know, stretch your legs there, embrace it completely. Don't be on the fence. Whichever way the way forward is for the Boks, give it horns And let's get answers as quickly as possible. And then I'd like to see, like I said, Sasha come through there. I think they need to make a decision around 9, not just because Faf had a bit of a mare on the weekend, but if they are going to play this up-tempo game, Grant Williams, the one thing that guy brings is massive speed. And the Boks tight 5 should always dominate. And you saw what Aaron Smith could do behind a dominant tight 5. The fact that Grant Williams isn't as physical a combative defender as Faf is largely irrelevant in that framework. You rolling downhill behind a winning pack. Grant's speed can be a real threat around the edges that keeps that defense honest. And in kick chase, you saw what he did chasing up his left-footed kick, caught Frawley with the ball and all. So I think they need to give that some serious thought.
And looking at the players he's picked to play against Portugal, he's a lot of new caps. Jan-Hendrik Wessels, it's been his, as he said, it's been their project since the guy was in school. He went to the Bulls, Jake turned him to a hooker, and he hasn't really shot the lights out there. Rassie's always rated him as potentially the best emerging loosehead. But to have a guy with the ability of playing loosehead and hooker, you surprised by that selection? Or
Very. I thought Ntatuka was ahead in the queue, and I thought this would be a great opportunity for him to start and get reps and continue his development. I'm not sure what answers we're going to get out of Jan-Hendrik Wessels against Portugal now. I suppose you'll be able to see how he can play in the system. But we're waiting for Kitsy to get back, right? In the interim, Gerard Steenekamp has taken his opportunities. So we're very much working on the fourth choice loosehead here. So interesting decision to go with Jan-Hendrik.
And if you look at Ben Jason?
What a player. Fantastic upside. Huge prospect, massive work rate, brings edge, very much an athlete, comes out of a Stormer system where they utilize him in that way. And he's a guy who I think could have a lot of fun on the weekend.
And nice to see some recognition for the Lions duo. Horn and Van der Berg on the bench.
Yes.
Reward for good form in the URC.
Yes.
How do you rate those two?
Yeah, again, if they're going to be playing that kind of game, those are the right players for it. And I think both of those guys are underrated. Q and Horn, Ruan Venter on the bench. Morne van der Berg is, I think, a very underrated scrum half. Brings a lot of value. So I hope everybody takes the opportunity to put their case forward, and I hope that it is going to stand them in better stead as this team transitions from aging veterans who are among the world's best right now to the team that has to play at the next World Cup.
Okay, now Scott Robertson was asked in the press conference how would he grade his All Blacks, and he thought that was rather hilarious. He looked at Scott Barrett and asked if they were back at college. And then he said a decent pass. So let's put the Boks back at college. How would you grade them in terms of that 2-test series against Ireland?
Yeah, this is always going to be the caveat to everything we say until we have clarity around how the Boks want to play. Is, we're judging them based on how we used to seeing them play. We don't really know what the directives are at the moment. So I thought Andre looked great. He kicked his points and he looked like the guy we know he is compared to how it was in that first test. Faf struggled. Damien was back to passing. Jesse Creel looked good. It's a difficult one. It was a pretty mediocre first half and a very good second half. So you're looking at 6s and 7s, I would say. Where
in Pretoria it was a very interesting first half, and then that 40 minutes to 60 minute period in the second half was also indifferent. So they probably got an 80-minute performance out of the 2 tests, but not in either test, the Boks.
And this is the second cycle we're talking about this. Remember, Rassie said after the 2019 World Cup, it's about consistency. And after the last World Cup, he said consistency. And so we're still searching for that consistency. And I think that's your point.
Yeah, and hopefully we show that in the Rugby Championship and the end of the year tour, because it's only going to get tougher. But credit to Ireland. I mean, fantastic. They could come here and they could draw the series. Everyone goes home happy kind of thing. If not euphoric, because we'd want that third test. We wanted that series decider. The other thing is, I happened to be at the Mediclinic yesterday. My partner had fallen and hurt her ankle, and I bumped into a few people there that actually watch the show, enjoy the show. Yeah, and I think the guy's surname was Daniels when they called him, Mr. Daniels, please leave. But he said, please, a bit more Ricky. And then I thought, Carlos has won the Wimbledon. Argentina have won the soccer. Spain have won the soccer. The Pumas have won. And Argentina's under-20s have beaten us. It's a Spanish weekend.
Absolutely.
Ricky?
Mr. Daniels, thank you for watching the show. I'm very glad to hear it. Look, we've got Portugal this weekend. My South American brothers, Portugal's small country, nestled into the space between Brazil and Argentina. They have a great sporting history, that country. Produced some amazing sporting people. Jose Mourinho, and then that great footballer, we all know him. Chiseled jaw, such good looks. He loves to score goals. Of course, I'm talking about the great Eusebio, hey? Enjoy the weekend's rugby.
I would just like to remind you that Portugal is in Europe.
Whatever.
Not in South America, man.
Ricky doesn't know his geography.
And in Brazil, Portugal, they speak Portuguese, not Spanish. So it was a Spanish weekend. Under 20s, disappointing. That tournament just doesn't end.
Mate.
How many more times
The more
would you
they
play?
lose, the more they play. Wow. It's terrible.
To quote Mr. Daniels as we bring it to a close, he asked me, how do you feel about the rugby? And I said, I felt a lot better on Saturday morning than I did on Saturday evening. And he looked at me and he said, what a drop goal. What a drop goal. And if anyone can appreciate a drop goal, us in South Africa can appreciate it.
Mate.
Joel Stransky, Yanni de Beer, Percy Montgomery in World Cups.
We love a drop goal.
Nasty Bota.
Oh.
Throughout his career, Dan Carter turned the tide in 2015 semi-final against us when they looked dead and buried with an amazing drop goal, and he did it in the final against Australia. They've started to appreciate it.
Glorious.
And in Ireland, I know they appreciate a drop goal. So we appreciate having Ireland here. To Mr. Farrell and his guys,
well done.
Well done. We'll see you on the battlefield soon. Keep on tuning in if you're from Cork. Did I tell you my great-grandfather's from Cork? Yes! I reminded everyone of that on Saturday night. And we'll chat to you next week after the Boks have pumped Portugal.